Good morning. You're watching Ask Profit on NDTV Profit. I'm Smriti, Chaudhary, and with me is Mathew. And for the next 30 minutes, we'll take all your stock-related questions. Now, to write to us, you can either WhatsApp us on the number that's on your screen or through any of our social media channels. You can also write to us on the YouTube live chat, and we'll be tracking that as well. Now, before we get into the show, let's quickly take a look at the markets and where they're currently at. If you look at the benchmarks, it's a bit of a chop and churn in the markets today. The benchmarks are pretty much flattish as we speak. However, on the broader end of the spectrum, if you look at the Nifty mid-cap and Nifty small-cap, both are in red. Nifty mid-cap is down over 1% and Nifty small-cap 250 is down close to 2% as we speak. Let's also look at the Nifty 50 contributors and see what's pulling the index down. Now, among the losers, we have ITC, where British American Tobacco Company has said that they will sell about 4% stake by the end of this month. This is as per a Bloomberg report. Then among losers, we have ICICI Bank and SBI as well. However, on the gainers, we have HDFC Bank. That's the biggest gainer, and that's also the focus for today, and we'll come back to it in just a minute. RIL and TCS, both on the gaining end as well. We're seeing a bit of a strong move from the IT companies. If you look at the sectors as well, pretty much all the sectors are in the red except Nifty IT. That's up about 0.7%. On the laggards, we have Nifty Media that's down about 2%, PSU Bank also down about 2%, and Realty, a lot of weakness, over 3% down as we speak. But let's shift focus to the biggest gainer on the Nifty 50, which is HDFC Bank. Alex, what's moving the stock today?
So, in fact, let's pull up the chart for the HDFC Bank, and in fact, it is the biggest gainer. It is off the high point of the day. It was gaining about 2.5% earlier. But then if you look at this, and if you also then pull up the intraday chart for the Nifty Bank, you will notice a similar movement. Of course, the Nifty Bank is currently trading with cuts of about 0.1% or thereabouts. And that move is being mirrored. But let's talk about HDFC Bank and whether or not a bottom has been hit and whether or not that is something that you should consider buying at this juncture. Let's introduce our guest. We've got Lancelot Dicuna, who is CIO at ValueX Wealth Connect. Lancelot, thanks so much for taking the time. And we've also got Osho Krishan, who's a senior research analyst at Angel One. Today, because there is no immediate fundamental trigger, I want to go to you first, Osho, on HDFC Bank. It seems like the biggest mover in terms of weightage, of course, but also 2% is not something that we've seen in terms of gaining terms in the recent past. What are the indicators telling you?
Very good morning, Alex. Well, coming to the technical patterns of HDFC Bank, then we have seen a kind of a decent recoup from the support zone of nearly 1380, 1400 odd levels. Because if I will be plotting the charts historically also, during the period of October 2022, it has seen a kind of a similar pattern around the same zone of 1400. And again, after a decent time consumption over a period of session, we have seen a strong movement in HDFC Bank. So here onwards also, there are some expectation that coming henceforward, we can expect some kind of a strong movement. But overall, if I have to tell you on the technical fronts, then on the lower end, 1400, 1420 is should be acting as the support zone. While on the higher end, the first resistance is placed around 1480. So until we do not surpass the zone of 1480, the momentum is likely to be on the sidelines. There can be some further consolidation that can be seen in this counter. But once we surpass 1480 on a decisive manner, then from there onwards, we can witness a strong recovery in this counter for the higher levels of 1540, 1560 on immediate basis.
Lancelot, the question marks about the deposit book and the pace of growth of the lending book have not gone anywhere. In fact, there are a few research reports that have come out that suggest that the bank will have to grow its lending book only at about 12% or thereabouts, and its deposit book by 20% if it has to correct the imbalance of the asset liabilities in 3 to 4 years' time, in 3 years' time. So how do you look at the fundamentals at this juncture?
Well, I think, the bank management has also indicated that they are addressing the issue. And probably over the next 1 or 2 quarters, we will see the steps that they have taken and how that is playing out. That will give a much better indication as to how this adjustment will happen. But I think that it's much easier to adjust the lending side in terms of, one can easily expand the book. But given that the management commentary was more on the fact that, the risk in the lending side has actually increased, and which is why they were looking at paring down the lending. As far as the liability side is concerned, I think they will be able to raise resources. So I am quite optimistic that HDFC Bank, we will see the impact of the measures taken by them over the next 1 or 2 quarters, and that will confirm that it will be back on a growth trajectory. So I think there are two sides to this, and I am more on the optimistic side. So I think one should look at this as a more positive thing. Once we know the next quarter how the impact is, we would get a much better sense of where this is moving.
But quick answer, would you buy at this point, or would you wait for the quarter results before you take a call?
So I would actually buy at this point, and I have been, we have been buying even earlier, because post the last quarter results, the management did outline out the measures that they are taking in terms of, expanding into rural India, opening new accounts. They have taken several measures in terms of branch expansion, which is actually going to lead to greater amount of liabilities being raised in those areas. And I think it's a matter of time, post March, we will start to see when the next quarter results are announced, you will start to see the positive performances coming in from that space. And that's when, I think people would then start to buy into it. So it's on a valuation basis, it's available at a reasonable valuation in terms of about 2.5 times its book value, which is quite reasonable for a bank of HDFC size and capabilities.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dikuna, and a very good morning. Good morning to you, Osho, as well. Let's dive into the questions. The first one is from Satya, and he's talking about TTK Prestige. Now, Osho, TTK Prestige has been on a downturn. If you look at the 6 months performance, it's down about 12%. And he has bought the stock, and he wants to know if he should continue holding on to it. Now, he hasn't given a buy price for the stock, but would you suggest getting out of the stock, and what are the what's the level that you should watch out for?
Very good morning, Smriti. Well, looking at the technical chart of TTK Prestige, the counter is into a corrective phase, so it has not recouped from a very strong resilience levels of nearly 780, 790 odd levels. So overall, the counter is still facing some kind of selling pressure, and one can witness further correction towards the zone of 680 on immediate basis. So for an investment point of view, it is not very much in line with my buying approach. I will ask to avoid this counter for the time being. One can definitely relook in their investments once the counter moves above the zone of 800 for short-term or medium-term investment. But as of now, looking at the overall sentiments and overall parameter development, one should definitely try to stay sidelines with this counter.
Okay. Coming back to you, Osho, on sale, it's down about 3.8%. And in fact, the metal counters have been under a little bit of pressure. But this is a question from Mohit, and he's looking at a short-term strategy. He has bought near levels of 40. So I guess he's bought quite a while back. But for the short term, he's looking at a strategy. So he's hedged this position with a call that he's taken at a strike of 148 at 1.5. So he's asking whether he should hold both delivery and F&O or exit from both the trades.
See, overall, first I will be talking about the technicals. Then on technical, the counter is looking very positive. It is maintaining the higher lows pattern on the daily chart. So as of now, until 120 levels is intact in this counter, there is no sign of caution that should be looking in from short to medium term perspective. But coming from the options front, the strike which he has taken is very deeply OTM out of the money. So I'm not expecting being this counter having that much of average trading movement that can be seen in the coming next 10 to 15 days. So I will advise to exit from the options position and keep holding the delivery position for the time.
All right, got it. Now, Mr. Dikuna, we have another question in the banking space, which is Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. This one's from Dr. J. And they've already bought in the stock. I've asked them about the buy price of the stock, but from a longer term perspective, how does the counter look?
So, Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, is a niche, operating in a niche segment. And at the moment, because of the correction, you've seen the prices and the valuation correct. But instead of investing in small niche banks, it is probably a better option to look at investing in some banks like, say, IDFC First Bank, where the bank sizes are larger and they have a lot more, ability to withstand difficult conditions or different conditions. And you would be able to have the similar kind of growth, but with a lot less volatility. So one should look at moving, from, say, something like an Ujjivan Small Finance Bank to maybe an IDFC First Bank.
Another question for you, Osho, and this is again a short-term strategy. This is from Sayyam Pancholi, who's writing in from Dungarpur. And he's asking about ITC, which has been in focus for various reasons, and Smriti pointed this out. BAT looking to sell stake in the company. But we've got Siam, who's got a March call, 425 strike at 6.5. What should the strategy be for this particular trade?
See, again, ITC being a very heavyweight counter, and it does not have a very strong average trading volatility. So that means it's a very low beta counter. So I'm not expecting 425 to be seen in another couple of trading weeks. Better to exit the positions. Yes, you can definitely see some kind of up move near about 415, 412 can be seen as the immediate spot zone. But for the time being, until it sustains above the zone of 400, you can hold your 425 call options. But I'm not looking for a very positive outlook from here onwards. There can be some less loss that you can have, but overall, it's better to exit from the position in the coming 2 to 3 trading days, looking at the overall sentiments or the development that can be seen in ITC.
All right, got it. Next up, we have a question on Jain irrigation. Mr. Dikuna, if this counter is part of your coverage, we have a question from Prashant, and they've bought the stock at 67 a piece. From a longer term perspective, fundamentally, how does the stock look?
Well, I think it's a bit difficult stock to buy into, because while the irrigation space might seem attractive from a macro perspective, being able to generate profits from this space is very, very difficult. And what we've seen is that companies have this company has struggled in patches. So during a phase when the rural India is doing better, there's a lot of scope for expansion. But during a phase when we are seeing all the news that we are getting is talking about a slowdown in rural India, in rural spending. So I think things are not going to look up for a while, and one should avoid, staying invested, or maybe even avoid buying into such counters for the next couple of years.
Fair point. Lancelot, as well as Osho, we have to slip into a very quick break. Viewers will be back on the other side to take some more of your questions, so do stay tuned. Hi, welcome back. You're watching Ask Profit. Now, we don't often do this, but I'm going to take this because our next viewer, Rajan, has pointed out that he doesn't often, or he says he very rarely invests in penny stocks, and whatever he's invested in is so far quality scripts. It's just that one of his friends suggested that he buy these two counters, and he did so. So he's bought Seacoast Shipping for a price of 6 rupees, and he's got 1,000 shares, and he's got GTL Infra at a price of 2.35 rupees, 5,000 shares. I'm quite certain, Lancelot, that you have no coverage. So, Osho, just in the off chance that you have anything to glean from the charts, what is a strategy that this gentleman can use?
Also, we do not track or suggest penny stock to any of the investors. But as the question is only on the penny stock, so firstly, GTL infrastructure. If I have to see the technical charts, then these counters basically do not have or follow that much of technicality developments, because overall there will be a strong circuit movement that can be seen. So it won't be suffice for me to have a very strong explanation depending on the technical parameters. But just for a sake, I would try to find the support and resistance. For GTL, it is approximately around 1.3 on the lower end, and on the higher end, approximately 2.4 should be acting as the resistance. But I do not have any strong conviction on the technical developments in these kind of counters.
That's a very fair point to make. But Lancelot, without going into the details of these two counters, I guess to a certain extent the reason why people jump into counters like this are names like Vodafone India, or Vodafone Idea rather, which was trading at what, 7 rupees or thereabouts. SpiceJet in the past has gone to single digit. Suzlon has gone to single digit. For the longest time it was languishing there, but it moved out. And you've been looking at the markets for so long, what is the kind of strike rate that someone would have in a counter that has fallen all the way down to single digit?
Yeah, I think, the strike rate it's all speculation basically. And it's very rare that a company which was in single digit, really gets turned around and then comes back on stream. So like even today, I know that a company like Jet Airways is still trading, and, there have been so many attempts to try and revive Jet Airways. But what you see is, is that very few of these really succeed. So I would put it this way, that the strike rate could be as low as maybe 1:20. So it's very difficult to really predict what can happen, because these are totally like lost bets. And maybe a Vodafone might turn around, maybe like a Yes Bank did turn around because State Bank of India took a stake and, they were bailed out. But it's difficult to predict these kind of moves in these kind of investments. So I think as an investor, one should stay away. But if people want to speculate, I think there are other ways of also speculating where maybe you can enjoy the speculation. But
fair point. That's a fair point, Lancelot. Yeah.
The next stock that we're talking about is Paisalo Digital. This one's on YouTube by Mamadi. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Now, we've just got news on this one, on this particular counter. Now, how High Court has given a notice to the RBI to probe the company's unfair lending practices. And if we can pull up the stock, yeah, it's down 15% as we speak. Lancelot, do you have coverage on this stock?
I mean, I did look at it, when it had got listed, but we haven't really actively followed it because we felt that, these lending companies, especially the digital lending companies, there's not really much of transparency in the procedures and in what they've been doing. So it's difficult to really understand and see their business models in detail, and hence we've stayed away from these companies.
That's a fair point. Sikandar Sandal is writing in from Ludhiana in Punjab and asking about IRCTC, which he's bought at a price of 1,034. A lot that's in the works, Lancelot, on the fundamentals in terms of expansion and the plans for tying up with other brands as well. Would you say that it's a hold for the long term?
Yes, I think one can look at holding IRCTC because, number one, they are an exclusive agency for the Indian Railways, and with the kind of trust that the government has put on improvement even in the quality of the railways, I think IRCTC will play an important role in ensuring that the passenger experience is good, and that will ultimately lead to profitability for IRCTC. So while the growth story has been there, I think the valuations are a little bit stretched at this point in time, because a lot of these announcements will take, maybe 2 to 3 years before they can actually start generating extra profits. But the stocks seem to factor in all these things upfront, and that gets discounted in the price.
Got it. Now, quick last question, Osho. This one's from Bharat. They're talking about Jio Financial. Now, they want to buy the stock at the current market price. However, would you suggest waiting and maybe some correction in the price?
See, overall, there has been very strong movement in Jio Financials in the last 2 to 3 trading weeks, specifically from in this calendar year. So obviously, looking at the whatever technical development has been there on the technical charts, I'm expecting that this should continue. But obviously, there will be a cycle of higher highs, higher lows. As of now, on the downside, 310, 320 should be the apt zone to accumulate this counter, while on the higher end, 380, 85 should be seen as the immediate target for short to medium term time frame.
All right, and I guess that answers Anurag's question also from Nagpur. Osho as well as Lancelot, thank you so much for taking the time and for speaking to us on Ask Profit. Pleasure having you on the program. Viewers, well, we answered as many questions, got as many questions as possible answered today. But some of you, of course, are not going to be happy with your questions not being answered. But hopefully, you've benefited from the stocks that we discussed today. That brings us to the end of this particular program. From Smriti and myself and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. This is NDTV Profit.